tell me, 14 years old, from Detroit, Michigan?
Yes.
Detroit, growing up in Detroit, tough town, wow.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think it was so tough back then. It seems tough now, being depicted in the news and in the movies.
Right.
It's like a real tough, rough, metropolitan kind of...
Because I hear everyone says, are you from Detroit? He said, I want you to feel at home. Stick 'em up. Remember that line? I know. They always do that line.
Well, people give me the impression that if you're from Detroit, you've got to be tough, you know, so don't give me that stuff.
Freda Payne, 14 years old, Pearl Bailey, all these wonderful people discovered you. Come on, tell me about singing at 14. You know.
Well, I started singing when I was about 12, and I had been studying the piano and taking piano lessons from the age of 5. And my piano teacher suddenly discovered that I could sing. And so she asked me to sing in the recital, and I did. And from that point, all my mother's friends started rushing up to her and saying, well, I didn't know Freda could sing because, you know, my sister Sherry, Sherry, who later on became a Supreme, she was the one who was the little one that was always performing and dancing for people at the drop of a hat, you know. So anyway, I started to enter talent contest, and remember Ted Mack?
Right, of course I
mean,
remember
nowadays,
Ted Mack.
a lot of us, Ted Mack was a very famous amateur show that was on network TV for so many years. And my mother I auditioned for Ted Mack, and I went to New York, and I was on Ted Mack. Then I was about 14 when I did that. I didn't win first place, but I won second place. And so that was pretty good for me. And then I appeared on one of those shows at the Apollo, and I
How
won.
was that? Tell me about the Apollo.
Almost like the way it is now on TV. The way you see it on TV now, it seems like pandemonium there. And they're so rough, and it was just like that.
Really?
Yeah,
do you
they
remember
had the guy...
Do you remember Freda Payne, what song you sang that night?
From this moment, I think from this moment on.
You did one number, or?
I did one number.
From this moment
and
on.
I remember my mother telling me, she was sitting in the audience, my mother, you know, about the second or third row, and she said she heard a lady in front of her saying, she's not an amateur, she's a professional.
That's an opening number, from this moment on.
Yeah, from this moment on, you for me, dear, only two for tea, dear, from this moment on.
That's a great opening number.
Yeah.
All the singers used to open up with that, didn't they, Freda?
Right, that was a great, and Lena Horne was known, that song was attached to Lena Horne for a long time.
How did Pearl Bailey, tell me, how did Pearl Bailey get into your life?
Into my life? Well, I was 17, I just graduated from high school, I just turned 17.
Right.
And there was Pearl Bailey had her review in Detroit. And a friend of the family's was at a cocktail party and met her road manager, a guy named Bob Bailey. And no relation, by the way. You know, he was sort of like he was the road manager for the tour. And somehow this friend of the family's, he mentioned that he knew me, and this guy mentioned that they were needing an extra singer in the backup troupe. There was a little backup group for Pearl and her songs. And so anyway, an audition was arranged, and I went to the audition, and I got the job. Well, I had to leave right away because they were going to leave to go to Cincinnati in about 2 days, and so my mother brought me down, packed my bag, and put me on the bus, and everybody sort of like became my chaperone because I was the youngest one in the whole group.
17.
17 years old, just out of high school.
Yeah. Pearl Bailey, love that lady. Did she teach you anything?
Oh, yes, she did. That's where I really learned most of the fundamentals in the theater.
Really?
You know, just little things like, you know, you got to be on time for half hour, and making sure that you take care of your costumes, because I mean, I had to wear wardrobe that was furnished by Pearl, by Miss Bailey. And once she sort of really gave me a hard time because we were wearing these large hats that she had custom made in Beverly Hills. And I decided I wanted to add a little personality to my hat, so I sort of bent it a little bit like that, so it would have a little curvature to it. And she told me off. She said, "You shouldn't do that. That's not, you know." She's got kind of a foul mouth sometimes, and she's not very modest with words.
Ellington,
let me tell you.
Duke Ellington. God, what a great guy. You just worked with him.
I worked with Duke Ellington during that same period. I was 17. During that same year. I met Duke Ellington almost under similar circumstances. The same friend. He was our family's attorney as well, and a friend and our neighbor. And he met Duke Ellington's son, Mercer.
Mercer.
And Mercer Ellington was, at that time, traveling with his father. And they arranged for me to meet Duke Ellington, and he played for me. They wanted him to hear me sing, to sort of like give his opinion as to what he thought were my possibilities in the future. And after that, I sang, he played for me, I sang Over the Rainbow and a few other songs, and he invited me to join the orchestra. And then about a few days later, we received a contract in the mail, a 10-year contract.
10 years. You enjoy working theater, clubs, but you're a club singer, really. You call yourself a club singer?
I've done more nightclub singing than anything else.
But you like the theater.
I love the theater.
Because you did Sophisticated Ladies.
I did Sophisticated Ladies not that long ago.
No,
I was
just
in
recent.
Long Beach. And we played there for a couple of weeks. The entire company, which included Harold Nicholas. And Teresa Hayes did the lead dance number. Gorgeous girl, very talented. I toured in Sophisticated Ladies for 16 months on the road. But you subbed in for Leslie Huggins on Broadway. Well,
Tell me about that.
I was Leslie's understudy, and this was during my early years still.
Really?
I guess I must have been about, well, I'm not going to tell you how old it was, but anyway. I'll tell you, the year of Hallelujah Baby was 1967.
Yes.
So you can imagine.
Yeah, but you had.
See, I was still 17.
But Freda, you had a hit gold record, Band of Gold.
Band of Gold,
Band of Gold, and the other one was
Bring the Boys Home.
Bring the Boys Home.
I had 2 gold records.
God, you had 2 gold records. And guess who is sitting next to you? Do you know Quinn Redeker. You just got back from Berlin.
Yes, your old hometown.
Well, he certainly is handsome.
Yeah, he is. Well, he's on The
Young and the Restless.
Young and the Restless.
Yeah, close enough.
Yes, Young and Restless. You're on that.
Oh, I watched that.
You
too.
watched that?
Yeah.
You watch that?
Sure.
Songwriter, writer, actor. You do so many things. And tell me about yourself, Quinn.
Well, what's to tell?
You were a comic at the beginning of your career.
Yes, with our friend Sally Marr.
Right.
Yes, he now, both of us are. We join Big Brothers. Now an 85-year-old man comes and takes us to Denny's once a week.
You're right.
No, went to Berlin to I really write.
Right.
That's really all about. I do The Young and the Restless. Really as supporting my writing habit, really.
That's your basic love, the writing?
Well, that's where the new ground is. That's where the world is your oyster. That's where
I
wrote The Deer Hunter, the original Deer Hunter.
Deer Hunter. Did you know he did The Deer Hunter? I didn't know that. He helped with The Deer Hunter. Tell me.
I originated it, wrote the original.
You originate that
Russian
score.
roulette and the POWs and Vietnam, all that stuff.
What restaurants were you in when you did that? Because he does it in restaurants all over.
You have to do that. You have to, because when you come up off that typewriter, it's Friday again.
Right.
You know, perspective is very, very important. It's a very solitary business. So you've got to get out. So keeping you honest is very important so that you can kind of go from restaurant to restaurant and quickly read it for the first time.
Right.
If you can read it for the first time, you know where your problems are. You can see that immediately. So you get the forest for the trees syndrome. See, perspective is everything. So restaurants are real important. As a matter of fact, you have a magazine here. They put me on the cover of Restaurant Row magazine.
This is Restaurant Row magazine. Why do they put you on the Restaurant
Because
Row?
of all the rest. I know all these guys.
You know them
all?
all.
Oh, through the years, sure.
So you
Gene
just go in there
Stratton.
and have a glass of wine and write? Is that what you do?
Don't drink wine much. It's what you need is the ambiance. What you need is the cafe au lait, like L'Express I go to a lot.
Yes.
The light is right. You can sit there for 8 hours. You have to. The food is good. The people, they'll leave you alone, yet they won't. Interesting point.
Interesting.
Let me ask you something silly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm in Berlin here recently, doing, and we'll get through this quickly.
You're in Berlin getting the pieces of the wall.
Well, yeah, you have some pictures
Tell me
here.
about this. Look
well,
at
I
this
just
picture
went to get a piece
of
the wall.
him
I was in Paris anyway. And
in
doing
Berlin.
some
Look at
research in
that.
Cannes.
He's struggling to get a hunk of rock.
Yes.
You got a hunk of rock.
Here, the lady I was with
Look
was
at
talking
it.
to the East Berlin Guards
Right.
through that wall, and she got them to reach down and pull out a yellow brick. So the yellow stuff is brick from the original
this the
wall.
original
Yes, and
brick?
this is the stuff you see me chipping off there.
Oh.
So there's a little yellow is
Interesting.
east, and the other stuff you see me chipping off. And what's kind of interesting is about the social reprioritization that we're suddenly going through.
Right.
Women, as a matter of fact, here recently there was an article on one of the cable channel, another cable channel,
Right.
about women in war. Here, you will look at this morning. We all went to see Bush this morning.
Right.
President Bush with the Academy. We all went. And he's talking about anti-drug and all the problems with drugs. And there are those of us at the table we were sitting at that felt the problem was really not so much the drug dealer as it was the culture, as it is the home, as it is the family. Bottom line is family is everything. Well, here, the most important unit in any culture is the family. The most important ingredient therein is the woman.
Right.
So, I put together the NAAAW, the National Association for the Advancement of the Appreciation of Women.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, my mother ran a boarding house for divorced women, and I grew up in this house.
Where is this?
In Seattle.
In Seattle,
yeah,
Washington.
Yeah. She's gone now, and I have 2 sons and 2 daughters, and they're in 4 different colleges, and we've had this round, you know, their boyfriends and girlfriends. But by far, any social ill, by far, is immediately traceable to the family. The most important ingredient is that woman. And so if we can solve these problems, because you'll see glasnost and perestroika, things are changing right in front of our eyes.
Right.
You were in Germany for 10 years, I think you told me.
I did the bases there, entertained the troops. You worked the bases, didn't you, Freda?
Yeah.
I worked with Johnny Ray. We
Frankfurt.
just lost our lovely man. You knew Johnny very well, probably. And we just lost Johnny. I used to MC the shows for Johnny and the Everly Brothers and Phil and Don. But do you enjoy living in Germany?
I was there 3 days.
Just 3 days?
Just 3 days. But my point here is that anything women get involved with, they improve. And we're seeing much more the women in involvement.
I see.
Well, think about it a minute. See, the options are war, but now that's going away. Don't shoot at me, sell me something.
I see.
Look at Iran, Iraq, and Vietnam. Look at Afghanistan. It's all changing. And women are becoming much more part of the forefront, and the world's getting better quicker, is my point here.
Tell me something. You're at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. Freda is singing.
I'm in the Cinegrill.
You're at Cinegrill and having a good time. Tell me about that. You worked there before, didn't you?
I worked the Cinegrill about 5 years ago. It doesn't seem like it does it, Skip?
No.
But anyway.
Tell me, Los Angeles really don't have clubs, do they?
No. Well, there's the Vine Street, you know, Vine Street Bar and Grill, which is it's a lovely place to work. And that's one place. It's mostly for jazz artists, and it's a very intimate, small, little club. Then there's the one on Cahuenga, the Catalina.
Catalina.
The Catalina. And I went to see Joe
club.
Williams. It's a jazz club. I went to see Joe Williams there, and it's nice.
But you don't call yourself a jazz singer, though. Are you Freda Payne?
Well, you know, that's the strange thing about me and my career. I started out being a supper club singer, meaning that I sang Broadway tunes. I did jazz tunes as well. The Lena Horne Syndrome, Diane Carroll.
Yes,
you know. Well, actually, when I got my first gold record, Band of Gold, and Bring the Boys Home, I was categorized as a soul singer, soul pop.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I found myself in this little trap, so to speak, where people expected me to be a soul singer, when actually I want to sing more jazz, more standard type material. Right. And I've just come to the point now where the public has been better educated into listening to those kind of songs via lovely, beautiful singing ladies like Anita Baker, and Regina Bell and Phyllis Hyman. Whitney Houston is a prime example. I feel more. I identify more with her singing style in terms of being able to deliver the material.
Right.
What Whitney is doing is very much close to what my style is about.
You had your own talk show for a while.
I did, yeah.
Yes, tell me about that show. It was called...
It was called Today's Black Woman. It was dealing with minority subjects and across the board as well, not just restricted to minority. We were network affiliated here in Los Angeles. We were on KABC, as well as in New York and Chicago. Also in some cities it was NBC, but then it was mostly syndicated. And then we went into cable.
Did you enjoy doing a talk show? Because you're so good at it.
It was kind of hard too, because I'd never done anything like that. It was somewhat of a challenge, but so educational. I learned so much. As you know, you have to read all your guests. You have to read up on all their biomaterial and research, come up with good questions, meaningful questions, and really know how to be a referee.
Quinn Redeker. Michael Damian. I know. Tell me about Michael. Tell me. That's your son in the... Tell me about Michael working with. Difficult, or he's a young, right? He's a nice kid, isn't he?
Good kid.
Nice kid.
His
good singer too.
Absolutely.
You know, he sings. He has a group. His brothers and sisters. They all do. They do a show together. All of them. Tell me about Michael. Go ahead.
Well, he's been on tour, but in Japan, I think.
Yes, he has.
Back.
Yes, he's a big star in Japan. Yes. Right. Yes. You've been to Japan, haven't you?
Yeah, Japan is an excellent place to work, and they love American entertainment.
Yeah,
It's in great demand over
yeah.
there.
You come out there and sing "Konbawa, konnichiwa." Tell me about yourself on that show. I mean, you've been at a few years. You know, you've done a lot. You've been writing. But tell me about yourself on that show. You enjoy doing it?
Sure. It's the intimacy of the camera, the longevity of a play. It's doing different
Getting up
every
early in the
day.
morning, learning those scripts, those lines.
That takes 20 minutes.
It's pardon me?
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah, it takes 20 minutes. You get there at noon.
That's all it takes. You make it so easy.
It is easy.
Doesn't sound that easy, does it?
It doesn't. No, because I'm in acting
on.
class now,
Yeah?
and acting is hard.
Yeah. Which class do you go to, Freda?
I'm studying with Al Mancini at Milton Casales' school over on at the Beverly Hills Playhouse.
You like to do acting, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Because you're a good little actress. You know that.
Well, you know, it's helped me in my singing, in my performing. Because it's taught me to concentrate and not to be so scattered. It focuses you.
It does.
Am I telling it?
Yes, but there's something else about you that we're not getting here.
What is?
She's much more than just a singer.
No,
There's
she's
a whole
not.
strong contribution that you make.
What is that,
to this
Quinn?
Well, just a minute. Now watch this.
Yeah.
Bear with me a minute.
Okay.
Not the singers, not Martin Luther King, not the ball players, not all the special people, just the average guy like you and me on the street. The words we use to express ourselves came out of the black avant-garde. You know that?
Ah, right.
Yes, it did.
Yes.
There, the content.
Yes.
A woman to, I mean, there's such, it's just a singer you're talking to here.
Yeah,
Special lady. The world's changed a bit right in front of us. There's strong
Those
input
days,
here.
they had the Blue Angel. They had the chic little rooms in New York. They don't have that anymore. How come, Freda, where a singer like you could really work? You know what I mean?
I think it's the economy. I think because we were talking about that just last night. We were talking about how New York has changed so much. I mean, there was a time when New York was so much the nightlife place to be. There was no such thing as it being dead in New York at night. And now there are not that many places to go in New York. There are a few places.
Right.
There's the Rainbow Grill is still there, and just recently now it's sort of been renewed and regenerated. And,
right.
I was speaking with Lainey Kazan the other day, and she just played there, and she said, Freda, you've got to work there. It's happening again. It's going on again. There's the Blue Note. There's a place on the west side called Sweetwater's, which is a supper club. And it's it's a hot spot.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's a hot spot to go to.
You know, Lady Kazan wanted to do Gypsy, I think. I think they wanted to do Gypsy. I think she'd be great in that show.
I think so, too.
Isn't she?
I think so, too.
Playing Madame Rose, she'd be absolutely...
Well, Lainey is a really strong person, and she has a dynamic personality.
Yeah, I interviewed her. She is dynamite.
Yeah,
She's got a lot
I haven't seen Tyne Daly in it, but her
great.
views have been marvelous, and everybody says she's terrific.
I saw her here. She was great. And they say she's even better in New York now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what to see, huh?
What does Freda Payne? Come on, Freda, tell me. What do you want a show, don't you?
Well, of course I wouldn't turn it down.
No, I meant...
I would love to have a show.
Because you know, you're really theater, too. You're not just a nightclub performer.
I need the challenge. I need that because this is what I do. This is what I've been put on earth to do. And it's something that I need to express myself. That's why I'm in an acting class, because I want to learn how to get that out. And I need that. It's good to be out there and in class and being diagnosed and just showing your guts.
Yes.
You know, making the mistakes and everything in front of people.
Quinn Redeker, tell me, comic. Used to write your own material when you were a stand-up comedian?
Sure.
Would you call yourself a stand-up comedian at the time, or were you a tumbler, or what were you?
This wasn't very funny.
It wasn't?
No, I wasn't.
Why? Why do you say that?
Attitude, point of view. I didn't look right, didn't feel right. Got with Billy Vader, was his straight man.
Interesting.
We did Steve Allen, Joey Bishop, and all the rest of it. I knew what to do. I couldn't do it. Billy didn't know what to do, but he was very funny. He could do it. So with Sally Marr.
You said one thing first. Do you know what you said first? Attitude.
You bet.
And that's the most important thing, attitude, as a comic or anything.
Yeah.
And you hit it right on the nose, attitude. And if you don't have that attitude, very interesting you discovered that. That was very... but you used to write your own material, though.
Sure, yeah.
What clubs? Some of the clubs you worked?
Well, you little club. We worked Dino's. We worked Playboy clubs all over the country.
Did you really?
Noel Stein, booked us, remember Noel Stein? And Sally Marr.
That was a good room, the old Playboy Club.
Oh, yeah.
On 2020 is there around.
Yeah, I know. I worked at Playboy Club several times.
I know you did. I used to see you there.
And then I worked Playboy Clubs. I worked at Playboy Club in Chicago, and that's going back quite a few years.
Yeah.
San Francisco and New Orleans.
And Phoenix. I think there was one in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And there was a Playboy Club up in Great Gorge in northern New York. Remember?
We don't have that anymore. In the comics, we have comic clubs now.
Yes, we do.
Why are the comic clubs?
Comedy is really hot.
Comics is the hottest thing. Why is that, Quinn?
Well,
comedians are hit.
Market economics, like everything else. It's much better now for a comic. They'll tell you it's much worse, but depending on who you're talking to, by the way.
Right.
But there's the Comedy Store. There's several.
But these comics don't get paid. You know, they get paid very little, and I think
That's
that
true.
is the why. We used to have a comedian, a singer, and a dancer. 3 people on a show, and they used to pay us pretty good. Remember those days?
Well, you know what's happening in Vegas now?
Yeah.
Is that usually you have the superstar headlining, right?
Right.
And then there's an opening act, which would be either another singer or a comic. What's happening now is that instead of bringing in another singer, that would be, let's say, 10 or 15 grand, they bring in a comic for $2,500.
Really?
They pay them less
Right.
because it's one guy.
One guy.
There's no overhead.
Right.
You know, there's no band to pay, no conductor to pay, and all that.
Freda
kind of
Payne, you
stuff.
love working Vegas?
Yes, I love working Vegas. I
Right.
haven't worked there in a little while now, but I love it.
Didn't you work there with Sammy Davis or something? I thought you did work
I
with
worked
Sammy.
with Sammy in New York on Broadway. I worked with Sammy a lot
What
of
kind
places,
of guy
San
is
Diego.
Sammy Davis? Because I met him several times. What kind of guy is Sammy?
He's a sweetheart.
He is, isn't he?
He's a wonderful man. He's been our pioneer for black people in the industry. He's been a pioneer, and he's had to go through so much. And although during the years, he suffered a lot of criticism from mainly blacks because of where he was, because he was a forerunner. He was out there in the front. He was doing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess sometimes people don't quite understand until
We
they
had 3
go through
people
it themselves.
Yeah. We have 3 people in the hospital right now. Sammy Davis, we had Johnny Ray, who we just lost, and we have Sarah Vaughan. 3 giant stars, singing stars.
Yeah,
at
Sarah,
Cedars. Isn't Sarah Vaughan wonderful?
Wonderful.
Did you
I
ever-
grew up listening to Sarah Vaughan my
She'll be
entire
back here
life.
tomorrow.
Who is some of the people that you grew up when you grew up? that
Well, Sarah
looked
Vaughan
up
is one.
Yeah.
Della Reese,
Della?
Ella Fitzgerald, Carmen McRae, Edie Gourmet. I loved. I loved Edie Gourmet.
Why do you love Edie Gourmet?
I loved Edie Gourmet, and this was back during the time when I was about 10, 11, and 12, when I was really listening to singers. I loved Edie Gourmet because of the purity and exactness in sound. She had such a pure sound, similar to the quality of Ella Fitzgerald. Like she did, I'll take romance, the way she held her notes out, and just the perfect timing, the perfect vibrato, and everything was so smooth. And her high notes were just right on pitch.
Tell me some of the films you've done, Quinn. You've done a
Ordinary
lot.
People,
You've done
Airport.
Airport. Tell me, yeah, you did
Candidate.
Candidate, yes, that's a great one.
yeah.
Like
Yes.
a Horseman.
Yes.
Coast to Coast. The North.
But I want to get back to the Vietnam situation. How did you come up with that story? Because you weren't even in Vietnam.
True.
Deer Hunter.
Deer Hunter. Original hook was a story about a man that plays Russian roulette for a living.
Right.
Take you someplace you've never been, show you
Right.
something you've never seen, and make you feel and care.
Right.
That's what that was really all about. Put it in South Dakota, I put it in Bahamas, and I put it in Vietnam.
Right.
For the Russian roulette. Michael Cimino, Derek Washburn, Lou Garfinkel, these
Right.
are other writers that came along and changed it, put a Steel Town story in front of it. Lou Garfinkel and I wrote the original one. It became the metaphor for our involvement in Vietnam.
Right.
Where we could kind of turn the corner on Vietnam. That kind of was just providential. We lucked out there,
Yes.
in my opinion. And it became the big Vietnam movie. They've come to us about Deer Hunter 2 and all of that, but it doesn't matter. I think the day has come and gone. So everything I'm writing now, these are things that I'm going to direct myself.
I see.
Totally nothing to do
So you're
with-
going to direct?
Oh, well, they bought everything after the Deer Hunter. They bought the next 6 or 7.
Wonderful.
Well, not so well. They didn't make them.
I see.
See, the money was nice, but
Tell me something. Vietnam. Were you in Vietnam? Did you work in? I don't think so.
No, I never did go.
You never did?
People think I was over
I
there
thought you
because
were.
of my
I don't
song.
know why. Yeah.
Because of Bring the Boys Home.
Yeah. Right.
It was banned from being played over there, and so of course people sort of put it together. Well, maybe
Right.
she was over there and did
Right.
something. No, I wasn't.
Because you did a lot of military, though, in Germany and all that.
Yeah, I
didn't
did.
you?
I've done military in England.
England, yeah.
When they had the U.S. forces over in France, stationed in France.
I did too. I remember you,
You
in
know,
France. I remember you, Gisela Gunter, in
Yes, Gisela Gunter.
in Germany. Yeah,
Right.
we worked.
Yeah,
You know, I
Jeff Jeffrey Patterson.
Jeff Patterson. You know, I was in a car with Josephine Baker from Paris.
Oh.
Jeff Patterson, who was from Australia. He was an agent from Australia.
Right.
And Josephine was sitting, and I was sitting in the back with Margie McGlory, as an impressionist.
Yeah.
And Jeff Patterson on the Autobahn was going like 160 miles an hour to go to Frankfurt.
Jeffrey was driving?
That's right.
Yeah, he drives fast.
Josephine Baker tapped him on the shoulder and says, "Listen, Mr. Patterson, do you have any children?" And Mr. Patterson, "No." She says, "Well, I have about 18 of them. I would like to see them if you'd open me." That'll never. Remember Jeff Patterson?
Oh, very well. I remember driving with him. We were driving from Germany to Paris, and we were in France at the time, and it was at night, and we must have been going about 80 or 90 miles
You
an
stay
hour.
at the Montjoly Hotel, Hotel Montjoly?
The
Montjoly, is that from it?
Probably.
Yeah? It was great. I love those spaces. Those were wonderful days. I worked with the
And
Everly
we
brothers.
hit an owl. A bird, well, it had to be an owl. This bird, I saw this bird and I saw it coming, and it was slowly flying across the road, very low, and we were going to hit it, and I said, "Ah!" And it hit. It hit, and I could have sworn it was going to break the windshield, but it didn't.
Freda, you have children. How many? Do you have one?
One.
One boy? Yes?
One son.
One son.
Yes, he's 12.
And you're doing real well at the Hollywood Roosevelt, I understand. You're going to be there 2 weeks?
It's great. Yes, I'm going to be there 2 weeks. I'm there this weekend, and I'll be there through the 10th of March.
Great. Wonderful. Okay, good. We'll all come and see you.
Yeah.
And Quinn, tell me, what's happening with you now? You got the wall, a piece of wall you get